It's an honor to be here and have the opportunity to speak to all of you. When I was applying for college, I recall my desire to be a role model, and I'm just happy I can share my story with all of you. How many of you grew up or still live in Little Village, Pilsen, Saavedra, or Bearwing? Raise your hand. Well, me too. I live in Little Village by 26th Street in Albany, where Disco Mall is, which that used to be the place to go back in the day. As some of you can relate, my parents immigrated to the United States from Mexico in search of the American dream. My father began working right away to sustain a family in a new world with a back-breaking job. My mother began working when I started high school to help pay for my education. Despite their work ethic, my parents lacked a vital element to a bright future, an education. Throughout my education, I had my parents' support. They weren't able to help me with my homework, and it wasn't because they had no time, it was because they didn't know how. Neither had the resources or opportunities to continue beyond the 6th grade in Mexico. I had to figure out the work on my own. It wasn't until 5th grade that I realized how important school is, thanks to this amazing teacher who helped me believe in myself. I realized I was able to be a great student and I could actually get somewhere in life. Mrs. Frazzoni assigned us an essay, what we wanted to be when we grew up. And I remember writing, I want to be the nurse who helps the doctors take out the babies. I wanted to be a midwife. That's when my interest in nursing began. As I grew up in Little Village, everything seemed normal to me. It wasn't until I was applying for college that I realized not every student in my community was doing the same. About 1 out of 6 students in my elementary class were still in high school. The rest either dropped out to work full-time or because they didn't like school. I knew my hard work and that decisions would shape my future. For that reason, I worked hard throughout all the 4 years in Cristo Rey. I wanted to maintain my GPA high, and as some of you may know, it's much easier to bring your GPA down than up. Cristo Rey motivated me to graduate and continue my education. The teachers were always available to help their students. They wanted their students to do well in class, to participate, and to ask questions. I appreciate all their work and dedication, like Mr. Indo, who would come in before school started to review calculus material with the class. I recall getting my acceptance letter in the mail from my top university. And I ran into my house and told my parents I got in. It was such a great feeling knowing I was closer to my dream. I was one of the few young adults in Little Village that was going to college. Many believe that because we live in Little Village or Pilsen, we don't have anything to look forward to, but I believe that if you work hard, you can achieve anything. As I first walked across Georgetown campus, I felt excited but also intimidated. It was a huge culture shock for me. I was mostly surrounded by white students, both inside and outside the classroom, but by also different cultures. My nursing class was small, only 24 girls, and I was one out of the 3 Latinas there. I was one out of 2 whose parents didn't attend college. My 4 years of nursing school were challenging. Everything in human biology was reviewed for so many students, but for me it was completely new material. I never imagined nursing school would be this difficult. On clinical days, I would wake up at 5:30 in the morning, go to clinical, come back to campus, go to class, study, do work. So the struggle was real. Because science was so difficult, I questioned my career choice. I ended up staying with nursing because it has always been my passion to help others, and I couldn't see myself doing anything else. So I decided to take on the challenge. I remember my first 2 exams in human bio and biochemistry were on the same day. I was not prepared to study for both materials at the same time, so I pulled my first all-nighter. Of course, not knowing any better, I started studying 2 or 3 days before the exams. When I got my human bio test result back, I literally cried. I was very disappointed that I got my first C. I told myself I would study harder, and I did, but I kept getting C's in human bio, so I decided to meet with my professor. She gave me valuable advice. She said, try other forms of studying. And so I did. It took me a while to realize that I wasn't like the other students in my classroom who would study 2 or 3 days before the exam and get an A. I had to study a week in advance, transcribe the PowerPoint slides to a notebook, and review the textbook along with my notes. I had to work harder, but I was fine with it because my parents are hardworking people and never gave up providing me with that asset. Every time I faced a challenge in college, I remember my mother's words. Finding the easy way to things never leads you to anywhere good because everything that is good in life requires hard work. By my senior year, I was getting all A's, and I had never felt that proud of myself. There were times when I would get overwhelmed and wanted to stop. But I always remember my parents' sacrifices, and I would push through. Attending Georgetown made me realize how underserved my community was, especially Latinos. Little Village was all I grew up seeing. I lived in a bubble my entire life until I went off to college and saw more of the world. I was able to learn and appreciate more about other cultures and traditions, like my roommate who was Palestinian. I was also able to see how many privileged people are out there. I had one of my pediatric clinical rotations in a clinic that offered their services to patients with limited access to health care. I also volunteered at a monthly clinic called Celebramos la Vida, where they provided free health screens for uninsured Latino women. Both settings reminded me of home. I felt a connection with them because I knew exactly where they came from. When I walked up to the stage and received my diploma from Georgetown University, my parents' American dream was fulfilled. Words can't explain how I felt that day. Definitely one of the greatest moments of my life. My parents' sacrifices had finally paid off, and I saw how proud they were through their smiles that day, and I was proud of myself too, because I did doubt myself. Getting an education at Georgetown made me appreciate where I come from. I would never go back and wish to be rich or wish for my parents to have gone to college. I believe that having 2 hardworking parents and growing up in Little Village shaped me to become the person I am. I struggled, I faced many challenges, but I was able to overcome every obstacle I encountered because I grew up in an environment where you had to work hard for what you wanted. I never had anything handed over to me, neither did my parents, as well as other classmates from high school. Sometimes we forget where we come from. Sometimes we forget the obstacles we face. But every time any of you is starting to care less about your education or work or consider giving up, remember all the struggles you've seen from your parents and yourself. Also, don't forget that asking for help is not a weakness. I just read this article called "What is it like to be poor at an Ivy League school?" and the message that was trying to give is the same as I'm trying to give you. It's going to be hard, it's going to be challenging because Latinos are going to these places where not a lot of us are out there. But that's a good thing. And there is one fact that I want you guys to think about. 1 in 10 people from low-income families attain a bachelor's degree by age 25. 1 in 10. Now, as a neonatal intensive care unit nurse at Rush University Medical Center, my job is to take care of the tiniest and sickest babies in the world, yet the strongest who fight for their lives. A full-term newborn is born around 40 weeks, which is 9 months. Premature babies can be born as early as 23 weeks, which is about 5 months. So there's a big difference. I've been a nurse for almost 2 years. My first year was challenging. It was not what nursing school made it seem, especially in the NICU where it's specialized and I had to learn everything from scratch. There were days when I get home and I would cry because how stressful my day was. And I know that's what medicine is, that's what nursing is. You will have good and bad days. But if you think about it, they trust us with their lives. Being a nurse carries huge responsibilities. But I do love my little peanuts. What makes this job rewarding is seeing how a 1-pound baby has made it so far, because remember, newborns are usually 6 pounds. At my job, only 7 out of 140 nurses are Hispanic. In the U.S., Hispanics make up 17% of the U.S. population, but only 5% are physicians and 3.6% are nurses. There is currently a shortage of Hispanic nurses and doctors in the U.S. That is a big problem, because by 2050, the minorities in this country will become the majority. Now ask yourself, with these statistics, what future awaits us if we are unprepared? You're the example of your future kids, grandkids, and our community. Everyone in this gym knows how hardworking our family is. But what does the media say? That we're criminals. They portray us as a group of people that are lazy. We are underrepresented in this country, but you're the ones that could turn that around. We will be expected to serve as doctors, nurses, lawyers, and everything else. So we need to prepare the future generation and be the example to them. While working in the NICU, I've come across Spanish-speaking families. Communication is essential, especially when trying to provide information regarding their baby's health. When there is a language barrier, it makes it very hard to connect with the family and create relationships with them. When I communicate with Spanish-speaking families, I'm able to see their relief through their facial expressions. They even tell me, finally, a nurse that speaks Spanish. And they ask a lot of questions because they become afraid to ask due to the language barrier. I've learned a lot from families that come from different cultures, and that is something I appreciate. As a nurse, you take the time to get to know them, and that is important when it comes to providing education. As you might be aware, hypertension and diabetes are prevalent in minorities. They are chronic diseases, meaning there is no cure, just management, but it is preventable. How many of you have family members with these diseases? Raise your hand. So do I. In the NICU, minorities, mothers that have diabetes or hypertension, are at so much risk for premature birth and newborn complications. For instance, let's say the mom, number one, has a normal pregnancy, baby is born at 40 weeks, goes home with mom. Now there's a diabetic mom whose baby was born bigger, had to go to the NICU because had sugar problems, and mom might be discharged before the baby goes home. When we explain this to moms, many don't seem to understand that it was in their control to manage their diseases to lower these problems. We just want them to understand that these diseases actually affect their babies. And these problems are very common in the NICU, where most of them are Hispanics and African Americans. As a resident of Little Village, I always felt like I had to give back to my community. By talking to residents, I've learned a lot. As a healthcare provider, we have to take many things into consideration, such as their education level, if they can read or write. Many people I've talked to only went up to the 6th grade. When they go to the doctor, they don't understand what they're being told, but yet they don't ask questions because doctors are either seen as an authority figure or they're just embarrassed to say they can't read. This is a reason why they don't follow through with their treatments. But they don't follow their diet because they don't know what carbohydrates are. Sometimes as medical providers, our medical terminology becomes our language, and we use it to educate. So for the future doctors and nurses out there, always ask them how would they like to learn. Handouts, videos, by you verbally explaining it to them, because we have to remember that they didn't go to medical or nursing school. We are the ones who went to school to care for and educate them. If you want to make a difference and want them to make lifestyle changes, the key is understanding what they're being told. It can get more complicated when we include behaviors. I've met some people who will just not eat healthier, and in a way we are telling them to get out of their comfort zone. It's very hard to help certain people, but that shouldn't stop us from helping them. There is so much we can do. And we might not be able to help every single person out there, but for those that actually do make lifestyle changes, that is something better than nothing. Sometimes we have to think about their income or resources. For example, in North Lawndale, there are no groceries available. There's only corner stores with junk food and soda. So how are they supposed to eat healthy if they have no access to vegetables or fruits? At Georgetown and other states that I've visited, like New York City, it's the same thing. They have their very nice towns with barely any violence, better healthcare access, and food. But then you go into the Hispanics or minority communities and it changes. I know my struggle isn't over yet. Graduating from Georgetown made me want to continue with my education. Now that I'm going into my second year of nursing, I am looking into graduate schools. I want to eventually become a primary care nurse practitioner and work in underserved communities. I want to provide education to families and children to promote healthy habits and prevent these illnesses that are prevalent in our population. And I know it's going to be much harder than college, but this is my passion, so I will do it. Hard work definitely pays off. If you believe in yourself, you will succeed. While at Georgetown, I met other students who had it even worse than me. They had no support from their parents or teachers, only themselves. And they were able to beat the odds and prove everyone else wrong. So I am personally telling everyone in here that it has been done. It is possible to go to college. There are so many opportunities out there for Hispanics, African Americans, minorities, first-generation students, and for those students that want to go into healthcare. Figure out what interests you, what's your passion, and believe in yourself, because at the end of the day, it's really up to you. Follow your dreams. If you have a passion for it, you will not care about what challenges you will encounter, because you have to tell yourself you will do it. Always remember, you are the key holder to the many doors filled with opportunities. You decide when to open the door of your choice and never hand the key to another person, because you are in control of your own destiny. And to finish up, some of you may have heard Drake's song, "Started from the bottom, now we're here." Well, we can relate to that. We did start from the bottom, but now we are here preparing the future generations of this world. Thank you.